is up next. We're going to turn it over to him.
All right.
3 seconds early.
Tucker,
Sean.
great show. Always good to see.
Thank you.
Busy breaking news night. I mean, it's all over the place tonight. For well over a year, he has targeted President Trump and everyone around him. Just look at Paul Manafort, Michael Cohen. In any case, anything to do with Russia? After 460 days, Mueller has found literally zero evidence of Trump-Russia collusion. Zero. Now the president is rightly calling out Mueller's witch hunt for what it is. This is now a national disgrace. In moments, we're going to have important updates on two individuals that are caught up in the special counsel's fishing expedition. Paul Manafort, who is now being tried on an old bank fraud charge, and Trump campaign volunteer advisor George Papadopoulos, who pled guilty to lying to the FBI. His wife is here with us tonight, and guess what? She thinks he should withdraw that plea, and he might. And also tonight, we'll expose the media's false moral outrage over security clearances. And by the way, it has nothing to do with free speech. And the president's decision, which was right, to strip John Brennan of his top secret access. Brennan is now threatening to sue the administration. A move I hope he takes. In fact, take it. Take the legal action. I can't wait for that discovery. Unless, of course, he used bleach, bit, and a hammer. Well, more on that coming up tonight. Plus, we have all the latest examples of the left's disgusting rhetoric ahead of the 2018 midterms. Forget about they go low, we go high. It's just the opposite. Sit tight, buckle up. It's time for tonight's breaking news opening monologue. Joseph Stalin's secret police chief once famously proclaimed, quote, "Show me the man, I'll show you the crime." Now, those are chilling words and the opposite of how the American justice system is supposed to operate. Our system is designed to prosecute crimes, not persecute individuals we disagree with. We live in a constitutional republic. We're supposed to have equal justice under the law and the equal application of our laws. Tonight in the United States, this is all in jeopardy. After more than 15 months of intensive investigations surrounding one man, the President of the United States, more and more Americans rightly are realizing that Mueller's seemingly never-ending witch hunt is not only damaging the country, but it is rocking our system of justice to its very core. And following the New York Times so-called bombshell report that the White House attorney, the president's attorney, in other words, White House counsel, Don McGahn, is cooperating with the special counsel investigation. The president tweeted this, quote, "Disgraced, discredited Bob Mueller and his whole group of angry Democratic thugs spent over 30 hours with the White House counsel, only with my approval, for the purposes of transparency. Anybody needing that much time when they know there's no Russian collusion is just someone looking for trouble. They're enjoying ruining people's lives and refuse to look at the real corruption on the Democratic side, the lies, the firings, the deleted emails, and so much more. Mueller's angry Democrats are looking to impact the election, a national disgrace. So far, 25 top FBI DOJ officials have either been fired, demoted, or resigned. Wow. Newt Gingrich is out with a brand new op-ed. It raises this important point, quote, "It couldn't be more clear the Trump White House was comfortable talking for 30 hours with a pack of high-powered, very tough-minded investigators because the president has done nothing wrong." My sources say, by the way, this took place over a period of time a while ago. And according to a brand new report from the Washington Post, McGahn does not believe he implicated the Trump in legal wrongdoing in special counsel interviews, his attorney tells the president's legal team. For months, Team Mueller has unsuccessfully tried to turn the screws on multiple individuals only because of their association with Trump. In other words, we're criminalizing political differences. They wanted something, anything they could use to get the president. And instead of finding evidence of any Russian collusion, Team Mueller was only able to strong-arm their way to a couple of guilty pleas. Let's see, lying to investigators, but the FBI didn't think they lied. 2005 tax fraud case, Paul Manafort, nothing to do with collusion, nothing to do with Russia, nothing to do with the campaign, nothing to do with Trump. We're reading about today Michael Cohen and taxi cabs. This is what you need to understand. No Mueller and neither of these men, Michael Cohen or Paul Manafort, would have to deal with this. No Russia, no collusion, no campaign, no Trump involvement. And we'll have a lot more of that coming up throughout the hour. But first, we do have new information surrounding one of those guilty pleas, George Papadopoulos. Remember, he was the one-time volunteer foreign policy advisor for the Trump campaign. This guy is facing up to 6 months in jail. Again, lying to the Mueller investigation. According to a report by New York, it appears Papadopoulos, who was in his 20s, not only played a small role in the campaign — I followed this campaign closely, I'd never heard of him — but also played a small role in Mueller's ongoing witch hunt. In fact, Papadopoulos has not been charged with any crime related to Russia collusion, campaign conspiracy, but his life is now turned upside down. And just like Manafort and others, it looks like Michael Cohen. We're going to have plenty more on that story. His wife will join us tonight. Now let's turn to another update from the Mueller target Paul Manafort. Jury deliberations still underway. 3 full days now in the 2005 bank fraud case. The media is now looking at this as the trial of the century. It's not. Manafort facing 18 counts and a potential life in prison over charges that had nothing to do with Russia, collusion, the campaign, or Donald Trump. See a pattern here? Manafort, Papadopoulos, others, they have just become pawns, really just pawns in Robert Mueller's effort to take down the president. They wouldn't be in any trouble if these people were not associated with Donald Trump, if Mueller didn't exist. So you see where this is going? And as Judge Ellis noted during Manafort's trial, Mueller is clearly turning the screws, in this case on Manafort, so that he will sing or compose. In other words, so the witch hunt can prosecute or impeach Donald Trump. And of course, Robert Mueller's just picking up where his fellow deep state sycophant John Brennan left off. Now, for months, we reported on Brennan's abuse of power and specific allegations that as a CIA director, Brennan disseminated Hillary's dirty Russian dossier throughout the federal government. And tonight, Sarah Carter has a brand new report detailing congressional allegations that Brennan may have been responsible now for getting the dossier to then Senator Harry Reid, who then subsequently released its details to the public vis-a-vis a letter to James Comey. And Brennan, of course, is denying these claims. Now, we also called out Brennan's recent conspiracy peddling about a sitting U.S. president during his time as a, quote, MSNBC conspiracy theorist hack. And last week, President Trump stripped Brennan's security clearance, rightfully so, because the CIA, please pay attention, policy is clear. It says this: in the case of former CIA directors, the agency holds their security clearance. They renew it every 5 years for the rest of their lives. However, this is the important part, the however part. That requires former CIA directors to behave like current CIA employees. Oh, you mean like calling the president a traitor and accusing him of being compromised by Russia? And all sorts of bizarre conspiracies that they peddle over at MSNBC? Brennan was obviously in violation of that policy. It's not in question. He actually accused the sitting president of treason and worse. He's used his status to legitimize what are absurd conspiracy claims about Donald Trump on national TV. Even fellow Trump hater James Clapper, this is even too much for him. He questioned the level of Brennan's daily vitriol. Take a look.
Do you think that John Brennan's hyperbole is an issue here, is one of the reasons we're having this crisis?
Well, I think it is. I think, John is sort of like a freight train, and he's going to say what's on his mind. I think, though, that the common denominator among all of us that have been speaking up, though, is genuine concern about the jeopardy or threats to our institutions and values. And although we may express that in different ways, and I think that's what this really is about. But John and his rhetoric have become, I think, an issue in and of itself.
Yeah, that's kind of. Even Clapper says it. Former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, retired Admiral Michael Mullen, also criticized Brennan's rhetoric, calling it damaging to the intel community. I'll take it a step further. And the country. Take a look.
John's an extraordinary servant of the country, but I think he has been incredibly critical of the president, and I think that has put him in a political place, which actually does more damage for the intelligence community, which is apolitical, even as he's retired. So I really don't support him being as critical a president as he has been.
Now, Admiral Mullen did not endorse Trump's decision to strip Brennan's clearance. Okay, reasonable people have reasonable disagreements, but it is clear Brennan's rhetoric alone is not fitting of a current CIA employee, and he's a former director. He's now threatening to sue the Trump administration. This, I beg, happens sue. John, sue. Please take a look.
Well, I have been contacted by a number of lawyers, and they have already given me their thoughts about the basis for a complaint, an injunction, to try to prevent him from doing this in the future. If my clearances and my reputation as I'm being pulled through the mud now, if that's the price we're going to pay to prevent Donald Trump from doing this against other people, to me, it's a small price to pay. So I am going to do whatever I can personally to try to prevent these abuses in the future. And if it means going to court, I will do that.
Go. I'd love to see that discovery, unless you use bleach pit and hammers. And anyway, give us a perfect opportunity to see what's going on inside all of this. By the way, in terms of corruption, and by the way, malignant efforts to literally impact a presidential election, let's get it all exposed. The people need to know. Now, today, President Trump mocked Brennan's hollow threats. He tweeted out, quote, "I hope John Brennan, the worst CIA director in our country's history, will bring a lawsuit. It will be very easy to get all of his records, texts, emails, and documents to show not only the poor job he did, but how he was involved with the Mueller rigged witch hunt." He won't sue. I don't think he will either. Now, whether or not he actually does, he's just one of many former ranking government officials who leverage their special security status, for financial gain. In fact, it pays to have a security clearance. Now, upon leaving office, what we have discovered on this show, and there's actually a new book out, we're going to break it all tomorrow, many high-ranking officials use their special status to gain lucrative offers from government contractors and others seeking their expertise. And meanwhile, over fake news CNN, proud bleep holder himself, Phil Mudd, is profiting off his security clearance. He's paid at CNN. He's an analyst. He had a complete meltdown when he was challenged over what is a lucrative practice among many that have top security clearances, not saying him, but millions of dollars. Jim Comey, take a look.
When I am requested to sit on an advisory board, let me ask you one question. How much do you think I'm paid to do that at the request of the U.S. government? Give me one answer, and you got 10 seconds. How much?
I'll ask you a question. How much are you paid for your consulting and contracting gig for being a
I have no contracts with the U.S. government that pay money.
I'm not talking
zero.
When you have a security clearance,
I have
and you
zero
keep it,
relationships with the private sector that involve my security clearance. Zero. I get $0 from consulting companies that deal with the U.S. government. Are we clear?
Well, I will be clear in saying that everybody in Washington, D.C. knows if you don't want to be honest about it, that's on you. But if you have a security clearance and you keep it, you get more money to have it.
We're done. Get out.
Phil, it's not your show, so I'm staying right here.
And this
defensive about this.
Get out.
10 seconds. Get out. Jim Comey. We're going to talk about him tomorrow. What if I told you that there are people that have security clearances and got paid by Lockheed Martin and $6 million, just pulling it out of thin air? We'll have a full report tomorrow. We're not saying Phil Mudd is involved in this in any way. We're not even saying it's nefarious. But we are saying people with security clearances, there is a money trail. And by the way, tomorrow night, we will have a full investigation, a Hannity investigation, investigating the investigators, follow the money. Hannity investigation. Back in 2013, mainstream media was largely silent when the Obama administration, by the way, did the whole same thing on a much larger scale, a blatant media double standard. But as we get closer and closer to the most important midterm elections of our life, you got to expect this coverage is going to get more insane day by day, minute by minute. For example, Conspiracy TV, MSNBC, one panelist even suggested the president wanted to round up people and murder them. Conspiracy. Take a look.
Your argument that he's not the leader of the free world because he's not standing up for democracy, he's not standing up for humanitarian rights.
He's a sort of junior player in a block of authoritarian countries.
And the people like the European Union are no longer looking at him as a leader any longer, and they're thinking of doing the right thing.
They see him as They see he's part of a bloc that includes Vladimir Putin, Duterte. He's kind of part of he's part of kind of an axis power.
Well, hold on.
That's worse. It's worse than that in a certain way. I mean, not that that's not the worst thing you could have said, because it's about the worst thing you could say about him. But
well,
if he's not the leader,
rounding people up and murdering them without any due process.
He'd certainly like to.
He'd like to. And it goes on and on. By the way, if a conservative said that about Obama, here come the boycotters. Here they come. Meanwhile, professional Trump hater He's an old friend. I actually like Steve. Trashing Trump supporters, he kind of does it every day now. Take a look.
His base is smaller. The Republican Party is smaller, but it is more faithful and more intense in its loyalty to Trump. And 40% of the country has surrendered their intellectual sovereignty to Donald Trump. There is, for them, no such thing as objective truth anymore. What is true is what the leader says is true, what the leader believes is true. And Trump has exercised that power, and 40% of the country has submitted themselves to it.
A little over the top. The rhetoric is even worse in the Democratic Party. Got one congressman, old friend of the show, so-called joking. About what? Drowning President Trump in the Potomac. Now, if you don't want this man or the Democratic Party taking control of your Congress, blocking the president you voted for his agenda, and putting an end to the all-important deep state investigations, you want open borders, Obamacare, you want to give them your crumbs back, and everything in between, then don't go out and vote in November in the midterms. Don't take it seriously. Not like our Democratic Republic is hanging in the balance or anything. Now, before we get to our guests, breaking just moments ago during an interview with Reuters, the president said he is concerned that an interview with the special counsel could actually be a perjury trap. I could not agree more. Why, they're going to say, you disagree with your lawyer? Now, what Rudy was saying yesterday, I think he could have been a little more articulate when he said the truth is not the truth, meaning if, let's say, Don McGahn says one thing, president says another thing, guess who decides which version they want to believe? That would be Mueller and Weissman, Jeannie Ray, and the rest of them. Not a good idea. Joining us now, Fox News contributor Sarah Carter. We have her breaking story, the author of 3 weeks in a row, the #1 New York Times bestseller, The Russian Hoax, the illicit scheme to clear Hillary Clinton and frame Donald Trump. Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett, the president should not talk to them. We've said this over and over again. I don't think any lawyer should allow it. And the idea that Don McGahn spent 30 hours there, 30 hours, is incomprehensible to me. But it does serve. We do know what the president said, and that's it. Anything else would be a perjury trap.
That's right. Just look how Mike Flynn was treated by Bob Mueller. Flynn is a guy who told the truth, according to the FBI agents who interviewed him.
Slow down. Wait a minute. Lieutenant General Flynn, great point, tells the truth, believed to be the truth by even Peter Strzok and James Comey.
That's right.
And he got charged with and admitted to lying to the FBI.
Yes, it shows you how unscrupulous and unprincipled Bob Mueller and his team of partisans are. I bet that Papadopoulos probably told the truth to the best of his knowledge. Papadopoulos was a bit player, but
scared, probably.
Yeah, probably scared. Probably went in there with
he's young, he's in his 20s, right?
Yeah, he was 30 years old at the time. Probably went in there without a lawyer. It's never a good idea to lie to the FBI. But Papadopoulos is an interesting character. I spend a subchapter in the book about him. It was never the Papadopoulos bar talk that triggered the Trump-Russia collusion
What was it,
hoax.
Greg? It says on page what?
Yeah, I'll give you the page. Papadopoulos, it was a rumor that he heard.
No,
and
but
he
it didn't
passed
start
it
there.
along.
We know
It
that
was
that didn't
triple and
start there.
quadruple
The media
hearsay.
lied about that.
That wasn't the trigger because that couldn't possibly be probable cause to launch an investigation. No, it was the dossier that John Brennan was the instigator of. He latched onto it and he peddled it on Capitol Hill and leaked it to the media.
Last question, and I'm going to get to Sarah's column on that very topic. Would Paul Manafort be investigated but for the fact that he worked for Trump? Would Michael Cohen have had to go through all he's going? They're talking about his taxi cabs, medallions in New York. It's a long story. They're talking about
Manafort
that. They're not talking about anything about collusion, Russia, the campaign, or Trump.
That's right.
So these guys, are they being persecuted or prosecuted?
Oh, they're being persecuted.
Singled out.
No question about it. The tax division of the DOJ actually investigated for years Paul Manafort. And they came to the conclusion that there wasn't sufficient evidence to bring charges.
But it's wrong to read 3 days in, 18 charges, 95% conviction rate in federal courts.
Right.
It's hard for him. If he gets off, he will be the 5%.
Yes, but good luck with unlimited resources
it's ridiculous.
and the power of the federal government.
And he has
going
another
after you.
trial. His life's over. They've
That's right.
screwed him royally. All right, Sarah, let's go very keenly to this whole issue. Then this gets to the heart of Brennan, and you actually spoke to Brennan's former spokesperson. let's talk about what you found as it relates to Harry Reid leaking the dossier.
So Brennan's former spokesperson, Deputy Chief of Staff Nick Shapiro, told me that Brennan in no way at any point in time during the summer of 2016 had access to the dossier, Sean. And he said that he didn't find out about the dossier, well, actually the contents of the dossier, until December 2016.
Is he lying?
According to a number of people that I've spoken with, there's a lot of concern about what Brennan is saying, because they know for a fact that Director Comey was already aware that Reid was going to be sending a letter. Now, Brennan meets with Reid and the Gang of 8 briefings on August 25th. 2 days later, he writes the letter. 2 days after that, on August 29th, it's leaked to the New York Times. So there's a coincidence here, a sequence of events that happened that they need to investigate. Now, you know, Judicial Watch is...
My little birdie friends, I know I'm only a talk show host, and we don't do investigative reporting, although we've beaten everybody as it relates to this story. That was, by the way, targeted at people that know who they are. I just want to say, isn't there an email chain that might prove this point?
There's actually a sequence of emails that people want to obtain, and this is why Congress, this is why Judicial Watch and others are suing for Brennan's communications as well as Comey's and Reid's.
And they may
now,
actually
Reid,
prove
I wasn't
that,
able
in fact,
to get...
he did do this and that he's lying about the Reid stuff? Is that what your birdies are telling you? Because that's what my little birdies are telling me.
Well, there are birdies out there that do believe that, Sean, but I think we need to see those facts, too, before we go that far. But I do believe that's why they're looking for him.
Last word.
Brennan actually testified before Congress that in the summer of 2016, he knew about alleged Trump-Russia collusion.
But he didn't read it.
So his lawyer's words recently belie the truth.
All right. Great work. Congrats, 3 weeks. Great reporting, Sarah. We have a lot of news to get to tonight. When we come back, George Papadopoulos' wife about major new developments concerning her husband. Will he back out of the deal with Mueller? We'll get reaction also. Jim Jordan, where are those subpoenaed documents? Next. All right, welcome back to Hannity. On Friday night, we learned that the special counsel has recommended up to 6 months in jail for former Trump campaign aide George Papadopoulos. Now, following this news, well, George Papadopoulos' wife actually sent out, George wasn't cooperative enough in Mueller's recommendation. He cooperated for a year. He helped his country. He's been loyal to the truth, not to anybody's agenda. His cooperation is considered pointless as it didn't reveal any wrongdoing by the campaign. Hashtag my guess. Just hours ago, Papadopoulos himself tweeted, been a hell of a year, decisions. Joining us now with more is the wife of George Papadopoulos. Simona is with us. Welcome to the program. I've been watching from afar. Can you give us any insight into your husband's tweet, decisions?
Well, as I said, it has been very difficult here for George and I, who suffered this pre-jail time lasting for far too long, considering that Mueller apparently considered this cooperation worthless. As you correctly reported in the tweet, I think the real focus of the investigation was not even about Mifsud, who we know today having ties to the Western intelligence and have no ties with Russia, at least no evidence lead to this conclusion. But it was about, do you, George, communicate this information to anyone in the campaign? Basically, the obsession was not about Mifsud, but about revealing any wrongdoing in the campaign. As I wrote in my tweet, George was loyal to the truth. He could not, of course, lie to please Mueller's agenda, and that's basically why he was not satisfied. But there are too many nonsense in this in this case. Starting
I want to just say one thing, Simona. First of all, I give you a lot of credit. You know what? I like that you're fighting for your husband. I also see the injustice that you see in this case. You saying in no uncertain terms, there really wasn't the stuff that when he worked with Mueller, they just didn't give him what Mueller was looking for, so now he's going to be punished?
That's my understanding, and I strongly suggest this conclusion. Otherwise, I don't understand, first of all, why the sentencing would be postponed for months. He has been pre-jailed for 1 year. He has been he had a lot of restriction, mostly had to contact anyone working for directly and indirectly in the campaign, or not having access to his professional network. They tried in any possible way to obstruct his life. Not to travel, restriction to travel, even within the United States. We were not even authorized to go to holidays. So there are a lot of situations that are humanly jeopardizing, but there are also other aspects that are legally very scary. That's why I suggested to drop off the plea agreement and invite Robert Mueller to show the evidences against George. Only recently, he filed a motion to suppress the evidences against George. Behind this...
Yeah, I'm not trying, I'm just trying to move, I'm just trying to get to one point.
Yes.
And I know, obviously, this is now throwing your entire family into chaos. And it seems like anybody associated with Trump, this is what they do, and they don't seem to care that this impacts real people, real lives like yours and your husband's. Here's my next and last question. Will your husband withdraw his plea with Robert Mueller?
We are discussing now the possibility and the technicalities behind this possibility with lawyers. We have important meetings tomorrow. Some lawyers reached out to me for further my tweet, where we were looking for further assistance and further legal opinions. Many of them, two of them in particular, highly qualified, they suggested there is a case. This plea agreement is, to me, even difficult to uphold in the context of a trial by the judge, because it's against the rule of law in many ways. There are many things that happen that are completely against the law. Starting from George's arrest in Washington, D.C., he was not represented by a lawyer. He was intimidated. There were no legal reason to arrest him for a charge
he was intimidated.
To January. Completely. It was very violent and unnecessary from the legal point of view. They could communicate this charge in a normal way, to his lawyers. He was represented by lawyers in Chicago at the time. So there is this aspect, and they didn't detain him more than 1 day in jail. Just to give him a little taste, and then let's go to negotiation, accept the plea agreement. George was a setup. He has been manufactured. Is a case as a manufacturer to justify, to me, the whole investigation. The conversation that triggered the investigation happened in May 2016, and he was interviewed only on January 2017. After 6 months, that the FBI already used the FISA order, a court order, to issue warrants on many people in the campaign. So how they justify the origin of the investigation? Why George Papadopoulos come up as a little player, but yet the one who initiated the investigation? This is a contradiction, right?
Let me just say the last thing. And for those that don't think there's a perjury trap for Donald Trump, look at your life and your husband's life. Look at Lieutenant General Flynn's life and what happened to him. They didn't even think he was lying. Simona, I wish you a lot of luck with your lawyers in this. I know it's hard.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your story. Joining us now
very
with
much.
more reaction, Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan. Would Paul Manafort, Michael Cohen, George Papadopoulos, and any of them be in any issues today but for Robert Mueller going well beyond no Trump, no Russia, no collusion, not even a campaign issue? And this is this is where we are, and you can't even get the documents you've subpoenaed?
Right. And Greg Jarrett is exactly right. The main issue is the dossier, not Mr. Papadopoulos, not these other things that we're hearing about. The dossier. Now, understand this. Bruce Orr's wife worked for the firm hired by the Clintons to produce the dossier. And 4 weeks ago in a congressional hearing, Peter Strzok said the FBI got the dossier from Bruce Orr. It is not supposed to work that way. But so that's the key. We need to get Bruce Orr in there next week and ask him all kinds of questions. Like, who was he giving the dossier to? Who received it at the FBI? Who was the person he handed it to? Did Sally Yates or Rod Rosenstein know what he was up to when he was meeting with Glenn Simpson and Christopher Steele these numerous times? Lots of important questions. That's the real focus. All this other stuff is off on the side. The real focus is that dossier, because that's what they used to get the warrant to spy on the Trump campaign.
When we get the dossier and we get the 302s, what are we going to learn? Because my sources are telling me that it was all about the dossier, as the Nunes memo, the Grassley Graham memos have said, all of it No dossier. McCabe said it. There would have been no FISA warrant. And then on top of that, you look at the tactics of Mueller. I mean, why is this Manafort trial going on? Why did this come out of the special counsel? You know, and the same can be said. Now we're reading about Michael Cohen and taxi cabs. Not about Russia, not about collusion, not about the campaign.
Yeah,
and we do know real crimes were committed. And real Russian influence.
We never get to the heart of this. The Clinton campaign paid Perkins Coie law firm, who paid Fusion GPS, who paid Christopher Steele, who talked to Russians to put together a dossier that was fake, that was fraudulent, that they took to a secret court, didn't tell the court who paid for it, got the warrant to spy on the other campaign. That's the real issue, and it all started with that dossier.
Are there emails that show Brennan leaking this information?
It looks like, I don't know for sure. But it looks like Brennan leaked it to Harry Reid, and and then you go down this list of people who should lose their clearance.
25.
There's all kinds of problems.
25 top FBI, DOJ officials that have either been fired, demoted, resigned.
Yep.
The top people, not rank and file.
Stuff.
All right. Thank you, Jim Jordan. Rudy Giuliani warning Mueller is trying to meddle in the 2018 elections. Alan Dershowitz, Andy McCarthy next.
They're trying to run it right into the election. And if that's their strategy, the American people really have to learn that. I mean, they're trying to do the same thing Comey did. They're trying to become judge and jury of the 2018 elections. That is a tragedy with a phony investigation like this. They simply don't have any evidence of collusion. And they have no evidence of obstruction other than their version of the truth.
That was the attorney for President Rudy Giuliani weighing in on this never-ending Mueller probe. Meanwhile, earlier today, Fox News contributor, former assistant United States attorney for the Southern District of New York, Andy McCarthy, put out this incredible piece. Robert Mueller shouldn't even ask Trump for an interview. He joins us now, along with the author of the bestseller, The Case Against Impeaching Trump, which I am very fond of this book, along with Judge Piro's book and Greg Jarrett's book. The three of them are all worth a great read. Harvard Law professor Alan Dershowitz. Good to see you both. Let me begin with you, Andy McCarthy, on your piece. If the lawyer gives them 30 hours, the White House counsel, the president goes in. Remember, George Papadopoulos, Lieutenant General Flynn, lying. And the FBI didn't think that Flynn was lying. Papadopoulos is basically a non-player kid in all of this. Why would the president think anything but a perjury trap awaits him?
Sean, I think that that's obviously what the problem is for him here. We have a history of this investigation where, one person remembers something one way, somebody else remembers it a different way. Same thing happened with General Flynn. First they decide he's telling the truth, then they decide that he's not. 30 hours of conversation about what the president was saying and what he was thinking in connection with the very actions that Mueller is looking into. If the president were to go in and submit to an interview, if he remembers anything differently from the way that his attorney remembers it, the White House counsel, then they have a conflict. And as I've tried to point out, those who say that an innocent person doesn't have anything to worry about, or an honest person doesn't have anything to worry about speaking to a prosecutor, are nuts, because it's the prosecutor, not the honest person, who decides whether you're being honest or not.
And Andy, let's be clear. Sure. When Rudy said this weekend, and I would argue it's inarticulate, the truth is not the truth. What he was clearly saying was, I would argue, legal jargon. As a former prosecutor, he knows well that you're going to have, say, Don McGahn has one story. The president says one thing that's different. The person that will decide what is the truth will be the special counsel that we all know is predisposed against Donald Trump. So that is clear as day what he meant. Inarticulate, but he's right.
Yeah, that's the point he's trying to make. It's the prosecutor who's the arbiter of the truth, and that doesn't mean the prosecutor is right. It just means that's the way the system is set up.
Yeah. And Professor Dershowitz, I got to get you to weigh in here. This is really, why would the White House counsel ever give them 30 hours?
Well, I think originally the original plan of the Trump defense team was to cooperate in the hope that the investigation would quickly end. That hope has been dashed. But going back to Rudy Giuliani for a second, I have an article on Gatestone today in which I say when the truth isn't the truth, making exactly the same point that Andy made, a point that I've been making now for 3 months, that in order to fall into a perjury trap, all you need is one witness who contradicts one statement that the person says to the prosecutor. That witness can be somebody who is singing, composing, who has flipped, who has a deal, who's been told either you're going to die in prison or you're going to tell us what we want to hear. And any defense lawyer who would ever walk a client into a perjury trap under those circumstances has to have his license reconsidered.
Let me ask you a question I was asking Greg earlier, Professor, and that is this. Would Paul Manafort be being prosecuted now but for all this on had nothing to do with Russia, no collusion, nothing to do with Trump, nothing to do with the campaign? Then the same goes for General Flynn. Then the same goes for Papadopoulos. And the same really goes for Michael Cohen. Isn't that true, that this is selective prosecution, or what you call the criminalization of political differences?
Well, you don't have to ask me that question. Ask Judge Ellis, who's presiding over the Manafort case. He has stated publicly that the special counsel is not interested in Manafort's alleged crimes. They're only interested in squeezing him in order to get him to flip and to either sing or compose. Those are words used by Judge Ellis against the president. The same thing is true with Cohen. Medallions, what does medallions have to do with the scope of the special investigation? Now, they're investigating him in the Southern District of New York, but they're clearly cooperating with the special counsel. The goal of all of this, right. The goal of all of this is to squeeze these people.
Rudy's worked there. All right, Andy, we'll give you the last word. I'm really beginning to have more problems than I ever thought with our criminal justice system. A guy that's facing 100 years, key witness in the Manafort case. Really? Sounds like a form of bribery to me.
Yeah, well, look, Sean, I think part of the reason the jury may be having trouble with the case is the way it was teed up for them. Mueller makes a deal with Gates, who basically gets a walk for the same conduct this guy, Manafort, may spend the rest of his life in jail on.
You guys have both been
I'm glad conservatives are finally seeing the light about this, that conservatives are finally being critical of the justice system.
In some ways, you were right, I was wrong. Tommy Lahren next. All right, our own Tommy Lahren hit the streets of Los Angeles to find out what people really know about socialism. Watch this.
Are you familiar at all with a little thing called socialism?
Yes.
What do you think about it?
I love it.
What do you love about it?
I like to socialize with everybody.
No, not socialize, socialism.
I'm not really sure what socialism actually is.
So socialism is basically an economic system and where everybody's equal. There's no rich and there's no poor.
Oh, no, I get it. It's kind of like what Cuba does.
I'm not quite so clear on the exact definition of socialism, but I think it's important that it isn't just every man for himself.
I don't know, because socialism's worked in some places.
Where?
And other places.
I'm still trying to find where socialism works.
I don't know either.
Do you know the difference between a Democrat and a socialist?
Honestly, no.
How do you feel about socialism, sir?
It's great. I just got back from Europe, 4 weeks in Europe. Free health care, good schools. It's wonderful.
Free everything? You think that works?
You have to pay for it.
Recent poll just came out saying that Democrats now view socialism more favorably than they view capitalism. What are your thoughts?
Doesn't make any sense. Socialism is ridiculous. I'm for it.
You're for socialism?
I am for it.
Why?
Because I think everybody should have a fair opportunity for health care. And, yeah.
Does fair mean free?
Fair means free.
Do you hear any of your friends talking about socialism?
Nope.
They don't talk about politics at all?
Nope.
Do you know who Bernie Sanders is?
Yes.
He believes in socialism.
Oh, okay.
Are you a Bernie Sanders supporter?
I don't like Donald Trump, so why not?
Anything not Donald Trump is okay?
Yep.
There are some, Democrats mostly, who believe socialism should replace capitalism. Do you think that's ever going to happen?
Personally, I do not think that's ever going to happen. I think capitalism is fantastic. It gives every American an opportunity to earn an income, each an individual.
Well, thank you so much. Have a great day. Good to see you.
Two people got it right. Two. Here with reaction author of the brand new book, Why We Fight, Fox News national security strategist, Dr. Sebastian Gorka, and former Secret Service agent, NRA TV contributor Dan Bongino, whose brother I met today is much better looking and smarter than him. I'm just teasing. Dr. Gorka, let's start with you. What's your reaction to that? Because that is the modern Democratic Party.
It's stunning, Sean. We're both old enough to remember November the 9th, 1989, where thanks to the good offices of Ronald Reagan, Margaret Thatcher, and St. John Paul II, the captive people of East Germany, with their own hands, took down the Berlin Wall. We thought communism, socialism had had a stake driven through its heart. But it's like those zombies in those horror movies. It's coming back. And these people don't know. I mean, Ocasio-Cortez, Bernie Sanders don't know that Lenin and Marx said socialism is just the waypoint on the way to communism. Communism is the objective of socialism, is what Lenin said. And the stunning thing is, Margaret Thatcher was right. Socialism is great until you run out of everybody else's money, just like you see in Venezuela, Sean.
I use the same quote often, and we're running out of other people's money, Dan Bongino. And it's kind of shocking. I mean, there's a pretty big percentage of the electorate that I don't think really understands the difference.
No, they don't. I'm reminded of that scene from Billy Madison. You know, we're all dumber for having seen that, Sean. Socialism is not free stuff. Socialism is death. It's despair. It's starvation. It is the government control of the means of production. Europe and Denmark and Scandinavian and Nordic countries are not socialist. Socialism is for imbeciles. Don't be an imbecile. These are capitalist countries with high taxes. If you want to argue about taxes, we can argue with the left about taxes. But Denmark, Scandinavia, and Europe, these are not socialist countries. These are capitalist economies where the government does not own the means of production. It just taxes the snot out of its citizens. I wish these people would wake up and read a book.
Dr. Gorka.
Yeah, this is the great myth. None of these countries are socialist countries. The land of BMW in Germany, the land of Volvo in Sweden, the land of Nokia. Sorry, these are capitalist states that tax their people a lot, but aren't communist states and aren't socialist states. And the other thing is, we've protected them for 70 years. So they have the capacity to choose butter over guns. Now they're in trouble when they have to defend themselves. So it's a fantasy land. It's Alice in Wonderland, Sean.
You both get A+ tonight, quoting Margaret Thatcher, Dr. Gorka, and taxing the snot out of them, Dan Bongino. And I did meet your brother today. He is better looking, smarter, and younger. I'm just saying.
He is. He's not smarter. He's definitely better looking, though. But he's not smarter.
Our video of the day, next.